All right. Well, we're on the chapter called Spiritual Growing Up. We're on page 17 of the life of uh, Peace Pilgrim. I couldn't get the word principle out of my mind. Of Peace Pilgrim, and we just are talking about the four purifications that we're going through, and the most recent one is the purification of motive, on why we do things, and trying to purify them, and to keep them to be selfless, right? To try and find ways of uh, working outward, right? So we're not working, doing everything just on ourself, our purification of self, but we're trying to engage this and to do it, find a way of service through it all, is what she was talking about in this last paragraph. She says, I talk to groups studying the most advanced spiritual teachings, and sometimes these people wonder why nothing is happening in their lives. Their motive is the attainment of inner peace for themselves, which, of course, is a selfish motive. You will not find it with this motive. The motive, if you are to find inner peace, must be an outgoing motive. Service, of course, service, giving, not getting. Your motive must be good if your work is to have a good effect. The secret of life is being of service, right? And that's what Ramakrishna's whole idea is, that we progress from me and mine to thou and thine as we grow. And so that's one of the when we're in a tamasic state, a state of inertia. That's that kind of dark depressions or lacking motive or feeling of just that sense of inertia in our life, like we just can't get to go forward. And Vivekananda said the antidote for inertia is rajas, or activity. And so he says, and this is something that I really used, with for battling depression. When you get into that depression, or when you're in a state like that, he says, go do something for someone else immediately. He's like, get up, write a card to encourage your best friend. Write a card to your friend and tell them how much you appreciate them in your life and what a strength they've been to you.
Kwame,
Go,
Kwame,
yeah,
are you the
yeah,
one who told me make a sandwich and go find a homeless person?
yes, yes. When I was in Hollywood, that was one of the things that I used to do. I'd take $5, or I'd go down and buy a pizza, at the corner pizzeria, and then just walk around giving out pieces of pizza to struggling folks. In Hollywood, Los Angeles, they're everywhere. And so, if you walked around Santa Barbara, you might get to keep a pizza for yourself, but in Hollywood, it wouldn't last a block. But yeah, that thing, move through it. Get out and serve somebody. Get out and encourage somebody. And it works for all of those inertia feelings, all of those self-oriented things. Oh, I have no friends. Oh, nobody cares about me. Or nobody, I'm all alone. I don't have any plans. Well, get on the phone. Pick up the phone. You don't have to send a message. Call somebody and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. Just wanted to say, I really appreciate how you were there for me the last time I needed someone. Just like that. Just be outgoing and be positive, and that will lift your spirits. And through the lifting of your spirits, other things will be taken care of as they go, right? But a lot of it is navel gazing. And that's not to undermine depression. Believe me, I understand, is not something that's trite that you can just go write a card and it's finished. But that is a seed that will take you out of it. It's a change in thinking, a change in habit, and that will help you out of it. That will take you a long way. It won't cure it. It's deeper than that. There's more going on than just that. But this is definitely one of the things that will help us in developing ourselves spiritually, to keep our mind on others. Because a fulfilled life, like we've been talking about, is a byproduct. It's not the goal, right? The goal of life is to be true to yourself, true to the nature of God that is within you, right? And so life is about manifesting that, expressing love in its purest form, expressing wisdom in its deepest form, and being present, in its most quiet form. Those are who we are and what we are. And so if we live according to those three principles, life will be full. Life will be fulfilling for us. Life will turn out to be good, right? But we don't live for that purpose. We just simply express our divine nature and we keep our mind on that divine nature. We nurture that divine nature. We sit in the presence of God to imbibe that divine nature, right? And then it becomes what we are inside. It becomes what we have lots of, which is a sense of inner peace, a sense of quiet and contentment. And that is a great gift for people. If someone is struggling, they don't need an answer from you. But if you're a contented person, if you have an inner strength and an inner bliss that you've touched and that you've developed, you don't have to have an answer for everybody. But you've got your presence, which is healing, because it's oozing this aroma of Satchitananda, of love and of wisdom and of being. And sometimes just sitting next to somebody, fully present with them, is what they're looking for, right? Even though there might have been other words involved, that is a beautiful thing to have somebody who's able just to sit next to you and be fully there with you. Not demanding, not trying to answer, not trying to fix, not trying to explain, just being with you, with where you're at, what you're feeling, and what you're going through, and allowing them to be in that space, not requiring anything of them. And that is a very, very, very healing energy to have. And it's ours by nature. It's not something we have to develop. It's something that will develop in its essence. It's not that we're developing it. It's that we're allowing it to express. Right? Egoism has suppressed a lot of these things about us. Right? Egoism has suppressed our ability to love everybody equally because our ego judges and discerns and separates. Right? And so some people deserve love, some people don't. I'd like to go over and give that guy a hug, but I don't know him and I'm scared to death to do it, right? And so we shut down a lot of our natural vibe of love, and even wisdom at times for egoistic reasons. We don't want to be embarrassed. We don't want to take the chance. We're afraid that we'll get too involved. If I go offer him $5 and what if he needs this and what if he wants that? All that stuff, and we shut it down, or we walk by somebody, we don't even acknowledge them, right? Because we just don't want to deal with it right now. I'm in a hurry. I've got to do this. I've got to get that done. But if we walk around in the presence, aware of this presence, it's not so easy just to walk by somebody and not pay attention, right? Because we'll feel their suffering. We'll feel that pain because in that presence is oneness. In that presence is empathy. In that presence is the truth that we are one with everyone. And when we walk by somebody, we won't see someone suffering. We'll feel their suffering. We'll share it with them. And then we alleviate it through worship, right? We worship the God within them, the highest truth within them. And that way they don't feel inferior. You don't feel superior. And in the end, the divine has been acknowledged in that person, and that will help them. That will be helpful to them to touch that reality within themselves, right? So these are the purifications that she's talking about. She goes on from today's paragraph. She says, I know a man who was a good architect. It was obviously his right work, but he was doing it with the wrong motive. His motive was to make a lot of money and to keep ahead of the Joneses. He worked himself into an illness, and it was shortly after that I met him. I got him to do little things for service. I talked to him about the joy of service, and I knew that after he had experienced this, he could never go back really to self-centered living. We corresponded a bit after that. A few years later, I hardly recognized him when I stopped in to see him. He was a much changed man, but he was still an architect. He was drawing a plan he talked to me about. You see, I'm designing it this way to fit into their budget, and then I'll set it on their plot of ground to make it look nice. His motive was to be of service to the people that he drew plans for. He was radiant and a transformed person. His wife told me that his business had increased because people were now coming to him from miles around for home designs. I've met a few people who had to change their jobs in order to change their lives, but I've met many more people who merely had to change their motive to service in order to change their lives. Right, and this fits in very nicely. Well, I guess I wasn't talking to you guys yesterday, but I went to Hollywood and gave a lecture on the image of God in us. Right, and this was one of those things. It's like it's not what you do in this world that's important. It's how you do it. It's the why of your motive. If it's selfish motives, then it breeds isolation. It breeds depression. It breeds meaninglessness, right? Because you're spending your money on things or your energy and time on things that don't matter. Making money at the end of the day doesn't matter. It matters to pay the bills, obviously. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is it's not the important thing, right? And doing your job at the office, if you do it in exchange for money, that's not very inspiring. Find something to love in what you do. If it's not the job, maybe it's the people in the office. Maybe it's serving everybody in the office. And if not, maybe it's something else, some other form of service you're called to. But to live a life for the well-being of people around you. And that is what fulfills us. Not because we're doing nice things. That's not the thing that fulfills us. It's the being true to our nature. That's what fills us, right? You're being what you are. That's why you feel delighted when you love. And the more purely that you love, the better it feels, right? When we don't do it to feel better, that's just what happens. And so we accept it as that's what happens. And so as a byproduct, life becomes full. As a byproduct, we make money, because the way that you work, if you work for love, right? If you allow yourself not to be feel squeezed by your schedule and rushing things out to get the most done in the shortest amount of time, but if you take that luxury of giving yourself the time you need to express love in what you do, it's going to make a difference. And when you turn in something at work or at school that love produced, it's going to be noticeable immediately. It's going to be noticeable. One well-written essay is going to be very different from something scribbled out to get it done as quick as possible and meet the deadlines. Very different attitudes and very different fruit from that. So here he has changed his motive and it changed his life. Now, relinquishments, right? So we've talked about the purifications. Now we're going to talk about those things that you have to leave behind, those things that you relinquish. Now, the last part deals with relinquishments. Once you've made the first relinquishment, you have found inner peace because it's the relinquishment of self-will. Wow, what a one to start with. You can work on subordinating the lower self by refraining from doing the not good things you may be motivated toward, not suppressing them, but transforming them so that the higher self can take over your life. If you are motivated to do or say a mean thing, you can always think of a good thing. You deliberately turn around and use that same energy to do or say a good thing instead. It works, right? So it's taking that, if your mind is given to mischief, right? And it wants to go, I don't know, anything. It wants to go steal a cookie from the kitchen. Well, instead of going and stealing a cookie, sit down and read a poem out loud. It's like give it a different direction. Don't just sit there and fight going to the kitchen to steal a cookie, right? Replace it with something that's helpful, something that's positive, something that's better for you, right? If you want to go in and eat another piece of cake, well, instead of doing that, go get a delicious glass of water. Try and replace your bad habits with good ones just by offering them different things. That's what Ramakrishna says to a child. If the child's running with scissors, don't just go and slap his hand and grab the scissors. Take him a red ball and trade him. Give me the scissors. Here's a red ball. And then there's no trauma. There's no sense of loss. There's no sense of pain. He got something better than the scissors. And so for yourself, it's the same. Take your bad habits and substitute them for positive things, in there. Instead, my friend Jackie, she tried many ways to quit smoking. But one of them is she took a big pack of gum and she just, every time she wanted a cigarette, she took a piece of gum instead. Right. So she was going through packs of gum left and right. But she eventually gave up smoking. So it's like that. It's trading out with your mind and, giving it something better for itself. And in time, the mind knows that that's better. You'll come to know that it's better. And in the end, you'll enjoy the betterness of it. The second relinquishment is the relinquishment of the feeling of separateness. We begin feeling very separate and judging everything as it relates to us, as though we were the center of the universe. Even after we know better intellectually, we still judge things that way. In reality, of course, we are all cells in the body of humanity. We are not separate from our fellow humans. The whole thing is a totality. It's only from the higher viewpoint that you can know what it is to love your neighbor as yourself. From the higher viewpoint, there becomes just one realistic way to work, and that is for the good of the whole. As long as you work for yourself, your little self, you will you, you are just one cell against all of the other cells, but you're way out of harmony. As soon as you begin working for the good of the whole, you find yourself in harmony with all your fellow human beings. You see, it's easy, harmonious way to live, right? So the first one, this relinquishment of self-will, of stopping to your own interests. I found this is a real trick that I found in the monastery. It's just the fewer opinions that you have, the happier of a person you're going to be. The fewer opinions you have, the happier you're going to be, right? Because opinions set up expectations, and expectations frequently are not met, right? And so when I'm thinking about going out to dinner with a friend, I don't sit and think about which restaurant, right? Unless I'm the one that's making the choice, right? If someone's then it's like, and then when they come, they're like, "Oh, what do you think of such and such a place?" I don't actually process that in my mind. I'm just like immediately, "Oh, that would be fine. That'll be great." Right? Don't form the opinions in your mind, and then you won't be disappointed by breaking them when those expectations aren't met. I learned that in the monastery because, one time they were painting. We had these brick steps out front of the monastery that went down 2 flights of stairs to the sidewalk, and they'd been painted dark brown for all their whole life, and they needed to be painted again because they were starting to become porous. And so everybody was arguing about what color the stairs should be, right? And I was sitting there, I was asking me what color the stairs should be, and I said, the color you decide. Right? I don't want something in that race. I don't want to sit here and come up with something and attach to a color for the stairs, right? Accept what comes. Of course, when they painted them too light, I told Swami they were too light. He just looked at me. But 6 months later, he actually came and said, "Oh, you were right," because all that dark soot from the traffic settled on them. So this idea, so number one, not your will, but thine, not my will, but thine, right? So you don't come up with ideas of what you want, right? You try and keep your mind open and thinking about what's most helpful to everyone, and then this actualization, this feeling of separateness, you know, this feeling of being separate and apart from the whole, but seeing how we're all one and that we have a responsibility toward each other to look out for each other, to do best for each other. Not necessarily at our own expense. Sometimes that will be appropriate, but it's not a matter of beating yourself up and just doing what everybody else wants. It's not like that. It's you discerning and you forming fewer opinions and just naturally being more agreeable, more positive, and not stuck on having things your way at your time. Then there's the third relinquishment, and that is the relinquishment of all attachments. Holy cow. These are big pills to swallow. So these relinquishments, I think all these things, these are all beautiful to keep in mind. But some of these, it takes a lifetime of effort to work it through. All of your attachments. No one is truly free who still is attached to material things or to places or to people. Material things must be put in their proper place. They are there for use. It's all right to use them, and if it's what they're there for. But when you've outlived your usefulness, be ready to relinquish them and perhaps pass them on to someone who does need them. Anything you cannot relinquish when it has outlived its usefulness possesses you. And in this materialistic age, a great many of us are possessed by our possessions. We are not free. It's this hoarding that goes on. Everybody knows a hoarder. It's like this really is a part of an American illness. You drive across the state of Colorado, and oh my gosh, every 5 miles you see one of these self-storage facilities. How many people have self-storage facilities for things that they haven't used in 5 or 10 years, and still they're maintained and kept in storage, right? Those things. It's going through our I grew up in the military and we moved almost every year until I was 18. I moved 14 times before I was 18. And the thing is that every year my mother would bring a box to my room and I had to fill that box with things that I was getting rid of. Every year I had to get rid of a box of stuff, old stuffed animals, old books that I wasn't keeping anymore, just stuff. And that was how we prepared to move. Everybody had to get rid of a box of stuff every year. And it kept us lean and mean. We were famous as a family because the moving truck would pull up in the morning and unload everything. And our family goal was that by the next morning, all the pictures would be hung, everything would be in their drawers. We really, because we moved all the time, we had it down. My dad would stand at the front door, and all the boxes had been marked as we had packed them. We all had to pack our own rooms when I was a kid, and they'd all put markings on the box. And my dad would be at the door, and he said, "That's up to the first bedroom on the left." I would be in that bedroom if it was my bedroom, and my dad would come up, drop that box in, and my responsibility was to have that box unpacked. And if it could be put away, to put it away, but if not, have it arranged on the floor in an organized way so that when the next thing came up, I would immediately be finished. And the neighbors were always amazed because my mother would always invite them over the next day to meet them. And the house would look like we had lived there for months. Anyway, why am I saying that? This relinquishment to all attachments, right? Be willing to let go of things when they need to let go. I have a rule that if I put something in a box and I haven't opened that box in a year, I don't open it to see what's in it. I get rid of it. Right? Because if you opened it to see what's in it, oh, I need that. But if you don't look at it, you don't need it, right? Because it's sat in there for a whole year unused. And so this way, look around your room. Are you hoarding things? Are you holding on to things? Are things getting a little too sentimental? Right? I remember my mother calling me and saying, "Oh, Ma, come, I've got several boxes of your stuff in the garage. I want you to take them." I said, "I don't want them. Throw them out." She says, "Oh, but they're your yearbook and and I don't care. I don't want them. Throw them out." Right? Did she throw them out? No. But they're still there, but they're not in my house. So always, watch yourself. We hold on to material things. We attach to things, and that causes misery, right? It causes misery. I remember we had a young man, not a young man, he was an older man actually, but living in the old temple. And, 3 times we had to empty his room out, 1.5 tons of trash each time because it just filled up. He couldn't get to his bed anymore. He started sleeping in the hallway. That's how we knew something was wrong, right? And so this stuff creeps in and it becomes an illness. And so we watch, right? So this relinquishment, watch your attachments. Make sure that you're not holding on to things that are unnecessary, attaching to things you don't need anymore. Anything that you cannot relinquish when it has outlived its usefulness possesses you. And in this materialistic age, a great many of us are possessed by our possessions. We are not free. I considered myself liberated long before it became the fashion. First, I liberated myself from debilitating habits, and I went on to free myself of combative, aggressive thoughts. I have also cast aside my unnecessary possessions. This, I feel, is true liberation. All right, so look at that little paragraph. I liberated myself first from debilitating habits. Right? I already can think of two or three things of habits that are debilitating. Right? Should I embarrass myself? Yeah, I'll embarrass myself. One of them is what I've started. I started this one a few months ago, so it's a bad, debilitating habit. But when I first wake up in the morning, I play a game of free cell. And you think, so what? Well, it starts me off in a bad habit for the day. The first thing I do is entertain myself. Not a good start for the day, right? So that would be a debilitating habit to stop. Sometimes I turn the light on and I let myself lay there in bed for a while, right? And I feel like because the light's on, somehow I've gotten up. Right? And these little these little ways that we fool ourselves, and they creep in and they start to crimp our life. We start to get caught by them. And because we're not being true to our nature, right? We start feeling unhappy. We start feeling stuck. There is another kind of possessiveness. You do not possess any other human being. You do not possess any other human being, no matter how closely related that they may be. No husband owns his wife. No wife owns her husband. No parents own their children. When we think we possess people, there is a tendency to run their lives for them, and out of this develop extreme, inharmonious situations. Only when we realize that we do not possess them, that they must live in accordance with their own inner motivations, do we stop trying to run their lives for them. And then we discover that we are able to live in harmony with them. Anything that you strive to hold captive will hold you captive. And if you desire freedom, you must give freedom. Associations formed in this earthly life are not necessarily for the duration of a lifespan. Separation takes place constantly, and as long as it takes place lovingly, not only is there no spiritual injury, but spiritual progress may actually be helped. We must be able to appreciate and enjoy the places where we tarry and yet pass on without anguish when we are called elsewhere. In our spiritual development, we are often required to pull up roots many times and to close many chapters in our lives until we are no longer attached to any material thing and can love all people without any attachment to them. Right? This is the problem with the way that we've arranged love. All right. I'm always entertained with this search, this quest for love, for perfect partners, you know, that we think that somehow something in another person is going to fulfill us, that that relationship is going to make my life perfect, right? And then, of course, it doesn't, because you can't start a relationship with somebody with that kind of pressure on them. You have to fulfill my life. No, if you want that to happen, then you need to sit there and go out and marry them in order to fulfill their life, right? So if your attitude is, I'm going to fulfill your life, and their attitude is, no, I'm going to fulfill your life, hey, that's going to be a good marriage, right? You're both thinking about the other and prioritizing the other, and done right, you both get your needs met in a beautiful way. But if you do it the opposite, hey, I need this person's going to fulfill my life, then you're going to be measuring them. Hey, I'm not happy. you know, this isn't the right person for me. Well, you already made that decision. And so you've got to rethink it. It's like, no, nobody can be fulfill your life. Nobody but you, right? Nobody but you can make you happy. And the whole watchword of the Vedanta, is freedom. So we try to understand right away that things outside of ourself cannot give us what we need. That we have to be able to give ourselves the love that we need. We have to give ourselves the confidence that we need. We have to give ourselves the positivity inside that we need. We have to provide the purpose for our life, the meaning for what we do, right? And if all of this is sourced in yourself, in your Satchitananda, you're going to be fine. That's exactly what it is. Using this beautiful nature of yours to express a beautiful nature to the world and to create an atmosphere of holiness, of sacredness in the way that you live, in the way that you move, in the way that you think of others. Right? So we give up the selfishness, we give up our attachments, we give up our self-actualization, right? These relinquishments, our bad habits, our unhelpful habits. When we see them, right? I'm starting to learn that about gardening, right? There's two ways to live in this world. Well, there's probably many more, but the two ways that I'm deciding between, one way is to walk through the garden and see stuff that I need to do at some time, and the other way to walk through the garden and do what needs to be done, right? And so you don't like, oh, I should pick that up later. I remember clothes on the back of my chair next to my bed. The At the end of the week, there'd be like three pairs of pants, two jackets, a shirt, a couple pairs of socks, all thrown over the back of the same chair. And sometimes the chair was in danger of falling over backwards from that huge load of stuff thrown on the back of it. And every time I'd walk by that chair, I'd be like, oh, I should put that away. Right. And then I'd walk by and put nothing away. And I don't know how long ago but it's been a couple of years now where I'd changed that habit. I decided if you walk by something that needs to be done, don't walk by and leave it undone. Pick it up and put it away, right? And boy, has that changed a life. It certainly changed the condition of my whole room anyway, right? I went from having to clean my room all the time to living in a clean room. Because if you do things as they're necessary, that's one of these relinquishments, relinquishment of laziness, which is a bad habit that we get into. I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that later. And then stress comes because things aren't getting done, because then you forget to do them, right? All right. Now the relinquishment of all negative feelings. I want to mention just one negative feeling which the nicest people still experience, and that negative feeling is worry. Worry is not concern, which would motivate you to do everything possible in a situation. Worry is a useless mulling over things that we cannot change. One final comment about negative feelings, which helped me very much at one time and has helped others. No outward thing, nothing, nobody from without can hurt me inside, can hurt me psychologically. I recognize that I could only be hurt psychologically by my own wrong actions, which I have control over, and by my own wrong reactions. They are tricky, but I have control over them too. Or by my own inaction in some situations, like the present world situation, that need action from me. When I recognized all this, how free I felt, and I just stopped hurting myself. Now, someone could do the meanest thing to me, and I would not feel deep compassion for this out of harmony person. And I would feel deep compassion for this out of harmony person, this sick person who is capable of doing mean things. I certainly would not hurt myself by doing a wrong reaction of bitterness or anger. You have complete control over whether you will be psychologically hurt or not. And anytime you want to, you can stop hurting yourself. Right? So this is a big one, right? It's very important because there's a wonderful thing that Swami Vivekananda writes about in that regard. That when you come to understand what the Gita says, you are the Atman, right? You are the ever free, the spirit within. It cannot be wedded, right? It cannot be burned. It can't be touched by the conditions of the world. And so if you place your identity there, you get to bypass the pains of the world. You can watch them and observe them, but you don't have to be beaten by them. You don't have to suffer because of them. The Buddhists talk about this in a way of you don't have to accept every gift that's given to you, right? If someone's angry, you don't have to take it in. You can just let them be angry, not sit there and wonder, oh, what are they angry at? Oh, did I do something? Oh, did I hurt them? You can go into that loop if it's helpful and if there's actually something you might have done. But otherwise, it's possible just to let people be angry with you and not be affected by it. Just sit and wait for them to get finished with their anger, right? And carry on, you know, or just sit and wait and then afterwards very calmly say, well, now what's the problem? Right? Like that. Not to accept every gift that comes your way. Somebody honks the horn at you. Doesn't mean you have to get angry and all worked up and start, banging on the steering wheel. How dare them? So they honk the horn. Maybe it was for someone else, right? So it's that way, giving yourself permission to be free in that sense. Not everything has to be taken in. These are my steps toward inner peace, and I wanted to share them with you. There is nothing new about this. This is a universal truth. I merely talked about these things in everyday words in terms of my own personal experience with them. The laws which govern this universe work for good as soon as we obey them, and anything contrary to these laws doesn't last long. It contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction. The good in every human life always makes it possible for us to obey these laws. We do have free will about all of this, and therefore how soon we obey and thereby find harmony, both within ourselves and within our world, is up to us. During this spiritual growing up period, I desire to know and do God's will for me. Spiritual growth is not easily attained, but it is well worth the effort. It takes time, just as any growth takes time. One should rejoice at small gains and not be impatient, as impatience hampers growth, right? So this patience is with yourself, but it's a steady progress. It's a constant awareness, right? And really that is the key to an authentic life, a fulfilling life, a meaningful life is attention, right? Be attentive, be present, and deal with things that are in your present. Don't drag things in from the past or drag things in from the future. Keep present things in the present and take care of them. Future things will arrive of their own. Past things don't even need consideration. There's nothing to be done. They're finished. If you continue to take good care of the present, then those past things will fall into a distant past and won't matter. Right? So you stay present, take the things that are present and do them with your Satchitananda and go forward. And you will be calm. Anxiety will diminish. Regret will diminish. And your power of being will increase. You'll notice more. You'll be aware of more. You'll think more deeply. You'll be able to act more effectively. You'll be able to hear people better, right? Because there won't be all this noise going on in your mind. All right. We've got more time, but I'm going to stop there. And what I'm going to recommend is that since we're stopping a little bit early, to go through what we've read and these different segments that she's worked on, the purifications, the relinquishments, the what were the first ones that she gave us? Let's see. But go through them. Just go through them and just write them down. Kind of put them in a nice outline form for yourself and think about them so that they don't just run off the pages into the past. Catch them. So we'll stop there and we'll go back. Yes.
Someone please remind me how we get the book.
You can go to peacepilgrim.org and download it.
But I thought you can like get a physical copy somehow.
Same place. Yeah, you have your option there of ordering a physical copy, or you can just download the PDF.
Was it .com or .org?
.org.
Thank you.
Peacepilgrim.org.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Anybody have any questions or concerns or? All right.
I have a comment, Swami.
Yes, ma'am.
He really analyzed herself, took a good inventory of herself, and then she started practicing karma yoga. What you read is everything is karma yoga, renunciation.
Yes,
Love for love's sake, not for result's sake. Do
that's right.
for, work for work's sake, not for result's sake. She
Yeah, yeah.
really,
Yes, that's what she said here. She said, this is universal truth. I
mm-hmm,
merely talked about these things in everyday words, right, from my own personal experience to make them clear. But these are principles of your own self.
exactly, very nice.
Anybody paying attention to life would come up with this same list,
Mm-hmm.
right? These same preparations for, and really that's what all religion is about, right? Is helping us along with these exact same requirements. All of these things that she has listed, you can pull from every one of the world's religions.
That's right.
And if you don't have a religion, you can pull it from what works in life and what doesn't, right? These
I
are,
have a question.
yes, Olga.
Very
So, if somebody wants to love everyone as in the same equal way, right?
Uh-huh.
And for example, makes a decision. From now on, I love everyone in an equal way. My family members, my friends, and everybody on the street, and those who um, yell at me or whatever. How do you go about it? Because I don't think you can order, or one cannot order oneself by just like a will or even a desire, because will and desire, okay, I desire to love everyone. Well, how do I get there? So I think that's the main thing in Buddhism, and I can just add to that question. In Buddhism, there is this practice, I'm sure you know about it, like metta loving kindness,
Mm-hmm.
where you actually start with sending loving kindness to your loved ones, then to people you kind of hardly know, indifferent, and then to people who actually um, harmed you or like you consider you enemies. And so you kind of you move into the space of loving kindness or the state of mind of loving kindness.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way, but I just don't know if you can comment maybe on how do you, because I don't think that one can at will, regular person at will, deciding like, okay, from now on I love everyone in the same way. I just don't think it's realistic.
Yes, I'm never in favor of making grand statements about future times that are not yours. I would never make a commitment to love everyone from now on. I would say I will love who's with me in the moment. That's a much easier thing to do. I don't have to make any big commitments about a whole lifetime and a whole thousand people that I don't know. I just make a commitment to love the people I'm with in the moment that I'm with them. Right? And that you can do. You just have to keep yourself aware of it. You have to remember that you're orienting this way. So once you set that intention, you're going to have to come up with a way of keeping that intention in your mind. Right? And that's why we do mantra. That's why we do our meditation. That's why we do prayer. That's why we chant and sing the names and the glories of God. You know, yes.
So that's the way, like singing, chanting, that would be the way to access Satchitananda. Because,
Uh,
the moment you are really not going about this loving people out of your ego sense, okay, I'm loving everybody now. Oh, I'm loving you. I'm loving you. So that doesn't work, right? So it has to come through some sort of a higher sense of universal love.
well, you have that. You are that. You have to stop forgetting it. And so all of the practices of the different paths are to help you stop forgetting that you are universal love, that you are universal wisdom, right? And to stop our mind from pulling us into the particulars where we forget our universal nature. We get pulled into narratives of smallness. And so in the moment, it's just a matter of constantly remembering. I mean, for the bhakta, it's remembering the presence of God from which we get that memory of love and that impetus to love. For the jnani, it's that acknowledgement of the I am, which is present in everyone, and recognizing that divinity in everyone by recognizing it in yourself first. So you have to maintain that. You have to become aware of that all the time, not just when you're thinking of it. All right. And so for the karma yogi, it's being present and doing what you're doing for its own sake as an offering to the divine beloved, to the universe. Right. And so everything you pick up, you make worship of it. Whatever you're doing is an act of worship. So all these are methods of trying to take everyday activities and turn them into methods of reminding you that you are ever free, ever pure, that you're in the presence of divine love, that you are in your own nature, pure love, pure wisdom, pure being, right? So that you don't get caught up in the narratives that will make you selfish, get caught up in the narratives that will make you concerned about the wrong things, making up narratives that distract you and pull you out of this divine reality. Right. So the only reason that we can't say, I'm going to love everybody from now on, is because it won't be 15 minutes from now before we forget that we said anything at all. It's not that we can't love everybody from now on. We certainly can. The problem is that we'll forget to love everybody from now on. And we'll get distracted by something else or pulled into something else. But if you walk into a room saying, I'm going to be loving, and every step you take, you chant your mantra and you remember to be loving, then as soon as you meet somebody, you're going to be loving. You're going to meet them with that intention, right? And you carry on and you just keep reminding yourself. And how you do that, there's myriads of ways. We can go to the four yogas if you want, but there's myriads of ways of doing it, you know. I had a friend who tattooed a little heart right on the inside of their thumb right there. So anytime they would reach out their hand to pick up something or to shake someone else's hand, that little heart was always right there on their thumb. And that was that was their little way to, to be more loving or to remember to be kinder to people, right? These are all little games that we play with each other. My friend Jackie, who was quitting her smoking for a long time, had that rubber band around her wrist. And every time she wanted to smoke, she would pull that thing out, snap her own wrist. So it would be a pain reinforcement for the desire to smoke. Right? I don't know how much of a help that was. She eventually quit smoking. I don't know which component of it worked for her, but that's how it is, and if you, uh, one of the things about living in a monastery that's very helpful is that every single room in this building has at least 10 holy pictures in it. You know, I can't go anywhere in this monastery where Thakur or Ma isn't smiling at me from some corner of the room somewhere. Right? So fill your house with things like that. I remember moving in, this was before I was a Vedantin, when I was reading tarot cards and casting runes and whatnot. One of the things I did in my house was on crayon. It was washable crayon, which you can get. But I took these washable crayons and I wrote these rune scripts. It was like taking and writing Sanskrit verses on your wall in each room. I wrote rune script blessings in each of the rooms in my house. My friends knew I was crazy, so I could do things like that, and so do things like that. Write something on your wall. Take little notes and stick them in your cubicle. Uh, you know, put a red ball on the top of your computer and know every time you look at that red ball, you're reminded of love. You're reminded of God. You're reminded of whatever it is you're wanting to remember. So turn it into a game.
Can I ask
Of
a
course.
follow-up question?
Yes.
But will you feel love even if you look at the heart on your tattoo or on your hand or heart, big heart? You can paint big heart on your wall. Will it bring about the innate natural experience of loving.
Yes, because that's what you are. You may have to work at getting things out of the way, but the love is always there. Your nature is to love.
Mhm.
Everything that you do, the impetus for it is love at some point, at some way. So yes, it will come. And yes, it is there, and it is the only way that you can act authentically. You know, the ego may have lots of motives for why you do things, but if you get those all out of the way, love is the reason behind all of them. You know, you overeat because you love. You love food. You love that taste. You sleep in the mornings because you love that rest and that feeling in the body. But you have to purify those things. You have to realize, well, gosh, sleeping in isn't helping me. I'm missing my appointments. I'm getting late to work. I don't have time to meditate. And so then you stop sleeping in late, right? And so those purifications have to happen, but they'll happen. They're not the point, though. The point is to start. The point is to make the effort and stick to the effort. And every time you fail, you get up and try again. You never count the failures. Don't sweat it. Yeah, I messed up. Yes, I was mean. Yes, I forgot. Yes, this, that, or the other. That's the beautiful thing about Brother Lawrence. He said, I acknowledged my error. I didn't beat myself much for it, and I moved on, right? Just get on with it. So don't worry about whether you're going to be able to do it your whole life. One of my favorite examples of this is that Vivekananda was having a conversation with M one time. This was after the master's passing away, and um, Swamiji said to M, he says, I want to fast until I realize God. And M says, well, why don't you? And Vivekananda said, well, I'm afraid I'll get hungry. and and M said to him, so eat something and begin again.
Mhm.
Right? I mean, those are two of our biggest luminaries. And what a beautiful conversation. I want to fast until I realize God. Well, why don't you? I'm afraid I'll get hungry. So eat and begin again. Right? It's that kindness that's behind everything, but the constant effort, the constant moving in that direction, whether you succeed or not the point. It's the fact that you keep getting up and keep trying and keep going and start again over and over and over again. That's how we learn about grace. When we finally transcend that thing, we'll think, wow, look at all that grace came to fruition in my success, right? But just constantly use that grace to get up and start again. I blew it. Yep. Don't think about it. Just get up and start again, right?
Thank you.
Swami, can I make a point?
Sure.
We can always love the person's divineness, but we don't have to accept their bad behavior. We have to separate behavior from the person, right? We can always love the person, forgive the person in our heart. But if they have done harm to you, we just let it go. That's what you mean, loving a person, accepting them as divine. We can accept them as divine, but we don't have to love their behavior, accept their harmful behavior towards us. That's what
Well, well, yeah, we try and look beyond that. If
Mhm.
somebody is consistently uh,
Harmful.
harmful or
Yes.
hateful, then it's up to you to salute them from a distance.
But
You still give them the respect as a human.
exactly.
You
That's
don't
what I
you don't
meant.
you don't go gossiping about them or whatever like
Mm-mm.
that.
No,
But you don't also have to subject yourself to them all the time. It's like
that's right.
if
That's what I
that
mean.
person, yeah. So
That's
it's
exactly what I
it's
mean.
yeah, that's saluting from a distance. I love that from
Exactly.
Ramakrishna.
We can send good positive vibes towards them, even staying at home. They are maybe 1,000 miles away from us, but
Hmm.
we don't have to love the behavior, but we can still love the person and send positive vibes.
Yeah,
Pray God for them. Pray God
yeah,
for them to give them jnana and light.
Well, yeah, you can do that. That we can get smug and self-righteous if we do that too much. The good thing to remember is that the only way that you can see their fault is if that fault exists in you,
That's right.
right? And so let their faults remind you of your own, and
Check
do you
ourselves.
and do your best, right? And do
Mhm.
your best. And that
Okay.
way it prevents you from being smug, like, oh, I pray for that person, because
Yeah.
which is beautiful if it's authentic.
Yes, it is.
But it's hard to pray authentically for someone who's harming you,
This-
in that moment. So in that moment, I like to use it more as a self inquiry, like, okay, have I ever done that? Have
Mhm.
I ever said that to somebody? Have I ever felt like that person is acting? And of course we do. And we also know that those are exceptions in us, you know. Yes, I've been that angry. Yes, I've been that mean. Yes, I've said those things. But that's not who I am, and that's not who I was at that time. It was just an emotional response. And so by understanding yourself, you understand others,
Other people too. Right.
right? And
Thank
then
you.
and then that grace that we give ourselves, we give to others as well,
Said them.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah, like that.
Thank you.
Certainly. Go forward.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.